Glory to you, O Lord.
At that very hour, some Pharisees came and said to Jesus, "Get away from here, for Herod wants to kill you." Jesus said to them, "Go and tell that fox for me. Listen, I am casting out demons and performing cures today and tomorrow, and on the third day I finish my work. Yet today, tomorrow, and the next day I must be on my way, because it is impossible for a prophet to be killed outside of Jerusalem. Jerusalem, Jerusalem, the city that kills the prophets and stones those who are sent to it. How often I have desired to gather your children together, as a hen gathers her brood under her wings, and you were not willing. See, your house is left to you, and I tell you, you will not see me until the time comes when you say, 'Blessed is the one who comes in the name of the Lord.'" This is the gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, O Christ.
Please be seated. This is kind of a strange gospel for us in many different ways. Jesus is on a mission. His mission, of course, looks like he's just wandering to and fro, but his mission is plain and simple. Since about the 4th chapter of Luke, he's gone about the countryside, and what he's doing is not only gathering those who would follow him, but he is healing. And not only is healing, but he is also casting out demons. So wherever he finds himself, small town, bigger village, even a city, wherever he is at, he is reaching out, and he is healing, and he is casting out these demons. He's also upsetting a lot of the Pharisees and the scribes, all those people in power, because, let's face it, he's doing the things that they should be doing. And that upsets them, because he's doing it for free. And that puts quite a bite into their income, doesn't it? So when these Pharisees come up to Jesus and say, "Jesus, watch yourself, you better get out of here, because Herod, he plans on killing you." Do we take that at face value? Do you really think those Pharisees were concerned about Jesus and his safety? Or do you think they had ulterior motives? Do you think maybe they just wanted him out of the way because, well, he was cutting in the direction? Or maybe, just maybe, it was even more sinister than that. You see, in Jerusalem, there were a lot of Pharisees and scribes, but they didn't hold the true power because they had to answer first to Herod and then to Pontius Pilate. But if they could get Jesus into Judea, well, the Pharisees had all the power there. They didn't have to answer to anyone, so if something would happen to Jesus there, who would know? So maybe they weren't just looking out for his welfare. Maybe, just maybe, they were trying to put him in a place so they could have advantage. Of course, Jesus says to them, "You tell that old fox." And by the way, that is kind of a saying of contempt back in those days. We might call him a son of a so-and-so. "Tell that old fox Herod that I am here today and tomorrow, and my work will be finished on the third day, but I am here, and I am doing the will of God. I am healing, I am casting out demons. Besides, I'm not in Jerusalem." And everybody knows, well, they don't kill prophets outside of Jerusalem. They bring them into Jerusalem, and that's where they stone them, or kill them, or do whatever else that they want to do. But the reality is a little bit different than that. This is God. This is God in Jesus Christ. Does he fear Herod? No. Does he fear Pilate? No. Does he fear the emperor himself? No. I mean, think about this. Jesus is out on a boat with his disciples. He falls asleep and a storm arises, and these fishermen who know the waters are scared to death, and they have to wake Jesus up because they are afraid for their lives. Jesus just stands up and says, "Be still." And the water calms and the storm leaves him. Do you think he would fear a human being? Would he fear an army, knowing that God's angels are there to serve him and protect him? No. Think about it from this point of view. Herod has beheaded John the Baptist, but did Herod want to do that? No. Herod respected John and he feared John because he knew that John was a man of God, and so instead of killing him right away, he imprisons him. The only reason John ends up dead is because Herod gets trapped and he has to fulfill a vow. So Jesus knows that Herod really isn't after his head. And yet he wants all people to know that he has a mission, and he is going to fulfill that mission, and no one and nothing is going to stop him. Not Herod, not Pilate, not the emperor, not even Satan himself. As we remember just a few weeks ago when we heard about the temptations of Jesus, that Satan was trying his darndest to keep him from the cross, because Satan knew that if Jesus died on the cross, then he lost. That Satan would lose this battle. Because Jesus dying on the cross then makes us righteous with God, and therefore Satan loses his power over us. And so he tried to dissuade Jesus from the path. Tried to tell him, "Jesus, you don't have to die. You don't have to go to Jerusalem. Take the deal and I will make sure all people bow down to you." And Jesus stood against Satan and overcame him. So if Jesus is not afraid of Satan, if he's not afraid of the emperor, if he's not afraid of Pilate, well, there's not much standing in his way, is there? What is the one thing, though, that Jesus really can't overcome? What does our gospel tell us about that today? You might be looking at me like it doesn't say a thing about that, but yes, it does. Jesus looks at Jerusalem, and he has this great lament. "Oh, Jerusalem, Jerusalem, the city that stones its prophets and kills those sent by God. I would be a mother hen gathering in her chicks under my wings, but you are not willing." What's the one thing Jesus cannot overcome? Our unwillingness to trust in him. Our unwillingness not to have faith. That's something that Jesus cannot make us do. You see, Jesus can do all things except unless we don't believe in him. Remember when he was in his hometown? He had just gotten off a great tour. People from all over the countryside had been talking about him because he was healing people. He was casting out demons. He had fed the multitudes. And yet when he got into his hometown, it is said he could do no miracles because they did not believe in him. The same held true for the city of Jerusalem. The same holds true for us. That if we do not believe, well, then we are not made righteous with God. If we do not believe, then Jesus dying on the cross means nothing for us. You see, God sent his Son into the world to save the world. And that's exactly what he did. But it also says, so that all who believe in him shall have eternal life. Jesus can't make us do that. He can save us from ourselves unless we just don't want to be saved. Think about it this way. When we were raising our children, we would point to the stove and say, "No, Bernie, burn." And we would get them close enough so they could feel a little bit of the heat and tell them again, no, don't touch it. How many times do you think they had to touch that stove? Just once. But they had to do it, didn't they? Well, that's kind of like we are. God says there's a line, I don't want you to cross it. Well, we tiptoe right up to that line. And we do that more than once during the course of the day. And we look around, and then we put our foot over the line. And sometimes we just keep on going. Yeah, sometimes we say, yeah, I believe in God, I believe in Jesus Christ. And yet every day we keep going over that line. And yet God says to us, I will put my arms around you, just as I would, as a hen does for a chick. That I want to wrap my arms around you and I want you to be safe here, but you have to be willing to be underneath my wingspan. And just as we, like some of those chicks, we want to toddle on off on our own. How many of you guys remember the Home Alone series? Yeah, I love that. What was that kid's name? Kevin? What did Kevin want more than anything else in life? He wanted to get rid of his family. Why did he want to get rid of his family? Because he wanted to be on his own so he could make all the decisions, so that he could do whatever he wanted to do. How did that work out for Kevin? Worked out pretty well. He got at least 3 movies out of that deal. But the realism was that once his family was gone, and yes, at first it seemed to be very fun, he realized just how much he missed them, realized just how much he needed them. And that being on his own was not all it was cracked up to be. And that he knew he needed that guidance and that love of his family, even his older brother. And so when they were reunited, he hopped into his mother's arms. You see, that's how it is with us and God. That God knows what we need, and yet we have other ideas. And we, just like those people, the Israelites, those people in that great city of Jerusalem, we too rebel. And yet God doesn't write us off. He continuously and for eternity says, I love you, and I have done for you all that I can. Believe in me, and you will be mine once more. And he continues to spread his wings wide so that we might come into that embrace, so that we might come to know that we truly do need him, that on our own we cannot survive, on our own temptation is too great, on our own all we can do is evil in God's sight. That we have free will, and that free will just allows us to rebel. And as I told you before, we're really good at that. And I'm just thankful that we have a Savior that was stronger and bigger than all of that. That God gives us what we don't deserve. For many of you who a couple months ago watched a really exciting Super Bowl, how many people received Super Bowl rings on that team? Was it just the 26 players that were out on the field? No. There are people on the practice squad who will never ever play in the Super Bowl. They will receive Super Bowl rings. The coaches, the staff, they all get Super Bowl rings. There was a receiver who played about 4 games and then he got put on suspension. Guess what? He gets a Super Bowl ring. That's the way God is with us too. But even though we might not be on the field, even though we might not do the things that God and Jesus Christ did, we still get the advantage of that. We still get to be called sons and daughters of the Most High God. We are still loved by God, even though we don't play the game, even though we weren't good enough to be in that game. We still get the ring. We still get that crown. We still get to be called the love of God. Jerusalem, oh Jerusalem. I'm sure there are days that God laments each and every one of us. I can tell you that I know there are days that God is saying, Ron, oh Ron, why are you doing this? Return to me. Trust in me. And I'm thankful that he allows me to do that. I'm thankful that I'm allowed to remember my baptism. I'm thankful that once again I can come before God and say, God, I screwed up. I'm sorry. I need you. And just like Kevin in the movies, he was welcomed with open arms. That God's love is never diminished, even though we stray. That God says, return to me, and I will love you just as before. I will love you even more if that is possible. That as Jesus walked that journey, he knew what was to come, but he also knew that it was his own choice, that he was walking in obedience to God himself, and he knew what God's game plan was all about. And it didn't entail taking the easy way. Rather, he knew that it had to end on that cross. That he was not going to allow Satan or Pilate or anyone else, Pharisee, scribe, or anyone, dissuade him from his journey, his destination. I pray as we walk through these 40 days of Lent, we might contemplate that journey that Jesus took, that we might, as we come face to face with temptations, as we might seek sometimes to take the easy way, that we might remember all that God has done for us and continues to do for us. And on those days when it just seems like the world is crushing in against us, that we might remember we don't have to do it alone. We have someone who spreads his arms out wide to embrace us as a mother hen, wanting us to come home, wanting us to feel his arms around us, trusting that he will make things new and right again. Let us walk with our Savior. Let us walk on that hardscape in those places that are pretty desolate.